about her garden, her kitchen garden, and about the season, the spring and the summer, the season of production, when everything was in flower and growing and blooming. The next item, which is to be read by Kieran Jemison, a great sailing friend, many years here, as I've already referred to. It's tomatoes a la creme, and this has two resonances for Nick. It firstly goes back to his childhood. Our mother was a superb cook with a great French cuisinière who bent towards French food. In the 1950s, it was unheard of here in Ireland at that period. Nick was influenced by her cooking, her skill, and her style. My mother was also a great lover of France, which she passed on to Nick. Nick spent many years working in France as part of his training. And that is the second reason for this coming to mind for Nick. And that is that as part of that training in his 20s, he was privileged to work for a year in Auberge du Perbiz, which was a 3-star Michelin restaurant at the time. It's in Haute-Savoie, in Alpine, France. He continued his training from there was superb, and as we know, it was from there he was determined to emulate that restaurant, and he achieved it with Catherine, attaining a Michelin star at Dundee Lodge. And they would have gone on only for Catherine's untimely death at the young age of 44 years, when they had to cease. This is a little recipe. That must be Nick telling us something, is it? Am I saying something wrong, Nick, am I? This gives a flavour of the tastes and smell of fresh food, particularly, as we all now know, one can smell it in the air, particularly in France. So I'll ask Kieran if he'd kindly read this piece, what we can do about this thing.
Tomatoes à la crème by Edouard de Pomain. Take 6 tomatoes, cut them in halves. In your frying pan, melt a lump of butter. Put in the tomatoes, cut side downwards, with a sharply pointed knife puncturing here and there the rounded side of the tomatoes. Let them heat for 5 minutes. Turn them over. Cook them for another 10 minutes. Turn them again. The juices run out and spread into the pan. Once more, turn the tomatoes cut side upwards. Around them, put 80 grams, 3 ounce near enough, of thick cream. Mix it up with the juices. As soon as it bubbles, slip the tomatoes and all their sauce onto a hot dish. Serve instantly, very hot.
Thank you, Kieran. That's Nick's humour all over. Thank you very much. Another little vignette, Hilaire Belloc, a naughty child, a naughty piece that purely appealed to Nick as a child, and it lasted all the way through. He loved limericks, as you all know. He loved jokes. He loved the company of people, view his friends, and a great laugh. And obviously he also, as we know, loved a few drinks. Possibly not a few, possibly more than a few. But this is a little vignette, a Hilaire Belloc piece, Henry King, Who Chewed Bits of String, and it's going to be read by Nick's niece, my daughter Anna.
Henry King. The chief defect of Henry King was chewing little bits of string. At last he swallowed some which tied itself in ugly knots inside. Physicians of the utmost fame were called at once, but when they came, they answered as they took their bees, "There is no cure for this disease. Henry will very soon be dead." His parents stood about his bed, lamenting his untimely death, when Henry, with his latest breath, cried, "Oh, my friends, be warned by me, that breakfast, dinner, lunch and tea are all the human frame requires," and with that the wretched child expired.
Thank you, Alan. Very, very well read and amusing. We come to the last reading, and before I explain the reasons for this, I'm going to run into the final part of this little celebration and remembrance. This piece is going to be read by Aidan, and he will then follow on with a few words about Nick. And then, following that, Kieran also will say a few words, and I'll wrap up after that. Now, this piece is Crossing the Bar by Alfred Lord Tennyson, again chosen by Nick, and he asked Aidan to read it, as he did ask Kieran to read Tomatoes a la Creme. I don't think I mentioned that. This will be familiar to you in the Yacht Club, and Nick chose it according to my notes, and I'm open to correction. He said that on undertaking sailing trips and while provisioning and preparing to set out, this piece would come to mind. And when he was admitted to St. Francis Hospice, and he knew that this was a voyage that he most definitely would not be returning from. He said that coming to the end of a life, a very enjoyable life with so many, with so many good friends here at Howth, and having been given the opportunity to join so many of you on so many sailing expeditions and regattas both here and abroad, that he had a very happy and fulfilled life, and he was ready to go. In fact, his happiness here in Howth was unparalleled, save that for that all too short period he had with Catherine at Dundairy Lodge. And in this you'll share Nick's preparation for his last journey. Aidan.
As you've all gathered from the readings so far that Nick had put down for us all to read, there was one thing that he used to always say in the many arguments that we've had over the years, and if he was anywhere near losing that argument or failing in it, he'd always turn around to me and says, "The trouble with you, Macker, is you suffer from a lack of a classical education." So he's obviously getting his own back on me now to try and read something from Tennyson. Crossing the Bar. sunset and evening star, a one clear cold